Hey, I have a question for you guys.
Yeah, bubba.
Let's talk into comedians. Like, same with music. Like, I copyright my music. Did you ever worry about people stealing your jokes?
It happens all the time.
They do, right?
Titus can talk about this, I'm sure.
What happened?
Anyone steal your jokes, bro?
What happened? Well, there's two
and
things.
How do you claim it? Like, no, I thought of that.
There's more of a mob mentality with comics. There's more of a old school leg breaking vibe. And even if you're into comedy, like, do you remember when South Park went after Carlos Mencia?
Yep, I was just going to bring that up.
Holy shit!
Mencia.
Like, when South Park does an episode about you being a thief, comedians will eventually, because comedy. Here's the thing about it. Music's brilliant. Comedy, to elicit laughter from people, you have to actually get into their heads and their hearts a little bit to get them laugh. Same with music, move their hearts, but you have to get there. It's an intangible. I can't buy laughter. So there's something about it that when someone steals your shit, like if someone found out that I went down and beat the shit out of a guy who did 30 minutes of my material, most people would go, yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, good.
Right.
You know, a music. Like, I remember, I was just as mad, though, weirdly enough, when Huey Lewis got ripped off by...
love Huey Lewis. Ray Parker Jr.
Ray Parker Jr. ripped him off. I remember being incensed.
Yeah.
Like,
you,
what?
Ray.
That's exactly the same song. How do you deal with it? I mean, you know...
I was just going to ask, do you actually copyright jokes and stuff? Does that happen?
Yeah, well, I write a show. So I always try to write a show with a theme. So I always copyright them as a whole show. And but yeah, people steal jokes.
I remember I worked at a bar. I don't want to say too many names, but I was a bartender at a venue that had a comedy show every Thursday night. And there was the host. I'm not going to say any names. And I actually knew him, and I became friendly with him. And I heard his act so many times. Because I was the bartender. I'm like, oh, this again. Okay, whatever. And then I remember it was like at the comedy store or something, and they outed him because they were like, we caught you. They embarrassed him. They found him. They called him out right on stage, and they were like, does this look familiar? And it was someone else's. This comedian who had died, a couple of years before, wasn't even like, okay, 30 years. Or, if you're going to rip some, I mean, I'm not saying do it, right. But if you're going to do it, maybe go back more than 5 years. He ripped someone's complete act off, and they outed him at the comedy store.
Was it a Latino guy?
The guy who ripped it. No, it was a
could have been
Mencia. But I remember it because I was like, oh my god, I knew him from Red Rock, or from where I was working, and like, I was just, and then there was like this document that all these people were like, you can't do that, and I was just curious if that ever happened to you guys and how you copyright jokes.
No one stole anything from me.
I'll tell you what. If you're decent in comic,
actually, someone did steal one thing from me.
Yeah, and if you have any respect in the business, I'll get a phone call.
Yeah.
I would get a phone call.
Yeah.
First of all, I've gotten a couple of these phone calls. Hey Titus, I work with this dude. He was doing the bit about this. I told him if he did it again, I was kicking his ass. And now I'm calling you to tell you. Here's his number. Here's the guy. So there's a weird internal policing. Yeah. No one else gives a crap, but comics really care because we all know how hard it is to write. To write a joke.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a joke.
Especially one that works.
Like, I even knew I was like, oh
yeah, but the worst thing is you write a joke that works that someone steals.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to write a joke that works.
The great thing is Twitter now. Like now, when I come up with something really good, I instantly tweet it.
Yep. And no one can say it was theirs first.
I wrote a joke about Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is proof that David Bowie. She's proof that David Bowie and Carol Burnett. She's proof that David Bowie raped Carol Burnett. When I wrote that, Lady Gaga's proof. I clear when I do a special, I clear it. Lady Gaga's proof that David Bowie at one point raped Carol Burnett. That's a good joke. And I started laughing in the car, and I just tweeted it because if anybody ever that's a stealable joke.
Yeah.
Most of my stuff's about my family. If you steal some shit about my mom being in a mental institution,
sure,
you're way crazier than I can even imagine. So my stuff's personal, but jokes are jokes are trouble.
Yeah.